Blessed be, my friend. Thank you both so much. If I took nothing else away from the talk this morning, if I can remember how that music made me feel, Deb and Cozy, thank you both so much. Yay! The fierce and fabulous Deb Santa Maria. I love that. Cozy, you brought it this morning. There's something comforting in the familiar, and just hearing you singing, it reminds me I'm home. And so I'm grateful for all that you contribute to the village, Cozy. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday morning celebration. I'm trying to mix up my backdrops here in our electronic land. So these are actually real plants in back of me. This is my real porch. So here we find ourselves. Before we get to our talk this morning, we have a couple of pieces of business to handle. First is celebration number one, and that is the celebration of our newly licensed prayer practitioners here at our center. Some folks are called to advanced consciousness studies work, to study prayer and consciousness and principle, and who decide somewhere along the course of their study that there is a heart and soul desire to be in high service to their spiritual community and to the world. And so they follow a course of study that we've now built into a 4+ year process, I believe. And at some point, they graduate from this course of study and test and panel, and after successfully completing all of that, they receive a license that entitles them to work with others in a professional capacity. We train people in the art and science and power of prayer. And today I'm honored to introduce to you our five 2020 graduates from Advanced Consciousness Studies, also known as Practitioner 2 Studies. These people just passed their panels last week. And they are Elena Hutchison, Bonnie Gonzalez, Diane Warner, Margot Tabbitt, and Zoe DeMuro. So in thinking about them, often when these kinds of events come around, I think about Dr. Holmes, our founder, and I think about his practitioner. Her name was Vitura Papke. And she wrote a few things. She has some ideas on this idea of being a practitioner. And so I thought I would share a little bit of her thought with you. She writes, down through the ages, there have been those in whom the light of divine love has burned so brightly that they've been willing to work in selfless love and service to others. As a practitioner of religious science, this divine love shines in me. Through diligent study and dedicated practice, I've prepared myself for this high calling. I have voluntarily offered myself to be used by God in the field of spiritual mind healing, to help lift humankind in consciousness above the experiences of all forms of sickness of mind, body, and affairs. I'm honored and celebrate on this day my commitment and willingness to be of service, and for my loyalty to the teachings of the science of mind and spirit. Now, she wrote a set of vows for herself, and I revisit these occasionally for myself and see how they land in my own mind and heart and soul. So I invite not only our newly minted prayer practitioners, but all of the prayer practitioners on the call this morning to hear and to feel Vitura Papke's vows and see where they land with you. She writes, as a practitioner of religious science, I willingly dedicate myself to practice the art and science of spiritual mind treatment. As a practitioner of religious science, I do bind myself to absolute confidentiality, keeping inviolate the identity and confidences of those who come to me for help. realizing that the greatest need of a practitioner is to have a personal experience of God, I dedicate myself to the discipline and regular and faithful prayer treatment, that I may be prepared to meet any condition that may come to me. My mission is to recognize the deep and abiding harmony at the center of everything, to see through the existing circumstances and affirm the truth that sets all people free. In the fulfillment of my mission, I have the same assurance expressed by the master teacher when he wrote, "It is the spirit within that does the work." And so I ask new practitioners and seasoned practitioners alike, if you agree with and dedicate yourself to these vows, please say, "I do."
I do.
I do. I do.
I am told, Elena Hutchinson, that you have a few words to say on behalf of the graduating class.
I do. On behalf of your new practitioner class, I'd like to thank a number of people who got us here. Reverend Jeff for making it possible to have a class, Constance Chapman for shepherding us through all the prerequisites, here's the Reverends Jeff, Francione, Jerry, and Robert Collins. Our practitioner mentors, Joyce Lamar, Karen Peterson, Judith Roberts, Chantal Rolfing, Susan Urquhart Brown, and Reverend Sally. And all the practitioners in the mentor committee, especially Robin Rice Olmsted for creating the mentorship program. Last but not least, we want to express our, I'm going to read, we want to express our profound gratitude to the two practitioners accompanying us the entire 2 years of our journey, our TAs, Susan Brecker and Andy Robbins. They plowed through our papers, made themselves available outside of class, chased us down in church to give us insights that had occurred to them, supported us through life challenges and did battle with the Zoom dragon on our behalf. Mm-hmm. They listened to tearful rants, at least one that I know of, because that would be me. They saw each of us deeply and clearly and always knew the highest and best for and in us, and held us with incredible tenderness and generosity. They are the people you want to grow up to be. Oh. And in short, what we have witnessed in going through this process is the givingness of this community. So we are collectively thrilled to serve this community in a new way. Thank you.
It makes me
well said, Elena. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to the congregation. Reverend Jeff.
She spoke our heart. She spoke our heart.
Let's
Yes.
see.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, everyone.
Eloquent, heartfelt, and lovely.
We can't wait to serve. We can't wait to serve.
How can I talk after that? Oh, all right. Well, we will though, because we have yet more business to attend to. Congratulations to the class. It really does take a village, which is the perfect segue into this next piece of business. As if she weren't busy enough, our own Reverend Francione has been offered and accepted a temporary part-time job as interim minister at the East Bay Church of Religious Science. She is retaining her membership. I know it's a big, it's a brilliant move on their part, actually. And she is retaining her membership and staff minister position here at the Oakland Center. So we're going to see just how much of her time and energy it is theoretically a part-time job, although I can tell you that ministry and part-time don't fit well into the same sentence at the same time often, but we'll see how that goes. We're going to see how much of her time and energy that job takes and adjust accordingly on this end. Assignments like this traditionally last from 3 to 12 months. So we'll see. And in the meantime, congratulations to Reverend Francione are in order, and to the East Bay Church. All right, into the material. I ran into a piece this week and I I tried to find out who wrote it because I like to give credit where credit is due, and I couldn't find the author, but I want to share it with you anyway. And it reads like this. Sometimes I just want it to stop. Talk of COVID, protests, looting, brutality, I lose my way. Become convinced that this new normal is real life. But then I meet an 87-year-old who talks about living through polio, diphtheria, Vietnam, protests, and yet is still enchanted with life. He seemed surprised when I said that 2020 must be especially challenging for him. No, he said slowly, looking me straight in the eye. I learned a long time ago not to see the world through the printed headlines. I see the world through the people that surround me. I see the world with the realization that we love big. Therefore, I choose to write my own headline. Husband loves wife today. Family drops everything to come to grandma's bedside. He patted my hand. Old man makes a new friend. His words collide with my worries, freeing them from the tether I had been holding tight. They float away. I am left with a renewed spirit. My headline now reads, Woman overwhelmed by the spirit of kindness and the reminder that our capacity to love is never ending. I like this piece so much because it speaks to me of the ultimate freedom, freedom to craft my own worldview, freedom to focus my time and attention on whatever I choose, free from any mental encumbrance, whether internally generated or externally generated. We're probably experiencing, I know I am experiencing plenty of both these days. But to be free to co-create, to choose, free to be, what would your headline be if it could be anything? We're so funny, we say that we're perfect, whole and complete, and then we set about focusing on what we have decided is wrong and fixing or improving ourselves. I think of it as accessorizing our perfection. It's one of the paradoxes of spiritual living. We're perfect and whole and complete just the way that we are, and evolution, unfoldment, growth, expansion, it's the nature of life. So we get to dance with that too, concurrently. But you can see the trap coming a mile off, the bigger question. And that is, if there is all of this improvement to be done, do I believe in my own divinity, in my own design, as a child of God? Would that not be the ultimate freedom? Can you imagine? I am as God created me, just as I am and just as I am not, in this and every moment. I like the sound of that. I like the feel of that. From our readings today, the most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. There can't be any large scale revolution until there's a personal evolution on an individual level. That's got to happen inside first. I have to tell you as an aside that I love that we have the freedom in our philosophy to search for truth wherever we find it, and to find it at Jim Morrison's doorstep. I got a real kick out of that, that we can integrate truth of any kind from any source into our worldview. And this one just worked for me this morning. The most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. This is where many of us seem to find ourselves. Speaking for myself, I'm certainly reconsidering what freedom is and is not. I've noticed that I buy into both freedom as the nature of creation, and therefore as my inherent nature, And also I have an unerring ability to limit my experience of that freedom. Fear, shame, doubt, they can all play into this consideration of personal freedom. And I want to know where fear and shame and doubt limit me. And I want to heal that. I'm realizing too, in a deeper way than ever before, that this conversation about personal freedom is not the same for everyone. Just because something is our spiritual truth, our design, our birthright, it does not always translate into our experience of life, which is as diverse as people themselves. There are variables involved, and we're right smack in the middle of considering a lot of those variables in this amazing transformative season that we find ourselves in. We each have our own freedom equation to consider, our own headlines to write. There is work to be done, and we're smack in the middle of it on a collective basis. And ultimately, reconsideration happens one person at a time, one realization at a time, one conversation at a time. And that is all underway currently. It's a very exciting time. As the Buddha reminds us in one of our readings for the month of July, what does he remind us of? Irrigators channel water, fletchers straighten arrows, carpenters shape wood, the wise master themselves. The question that I found myself asking myself this past week is how am I keeping myself in bondage? That's where my work is, not just on my own behalf, but on behalf of the greater whole, because we're all interdependent and we all influence each other and our world with every thought and word and deed. The weller I am, the weller you are, the weller we are individually, the weller our world is. Does that make sense? And we share that wellness, we give of it freely. And yet, collectively, oh, we're funny critters. We're experiencing some new restrictions on our freedoms. I keep thinking about masks. We're seeing some folks not navigating that restriction very gracefully. Some are crankier than others. And part of what I realized is I need to love the crankiness, because I think we're all a little cranky. I am. This COVID thing makes me a little cranky. And my illness makes me a little cranky. And the fact that it sometimes feels like life is out of control makes me a little cranky. And the headlines. Oh, the headlines. And what I realize is that all of that crankiness limits my freedom. My crankiness. To express and to experience the joy and the kindness and the good that is my design and my desire and my birthright, as it is yours. So you see, and I see, that I have plenty of work to do right here in the garden of my own mind. Enough liberation work. And as I free myself, well, Marianne Williamson speaks to it as well as anyone when she writes, "Our playing small doesn't serve the world. We were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." So instead of allowing someone else's headlines to define my reality, and instead of subscribing to some of my very own self-generated limiting headline, I do the work of self-liberation. There can't be any large-scale revolution until there's a personal evolution. What is mine to be? And what is mine to do? We come back to that often, I know. And I know that the being informs the doing. Therefore, my work is to first liberate myself, free from fear, free from superstition, free from false belief. I was reminded of A Course of Miracles this week that reminds us if you knew who walked beside you, you would never be afraid. Just forget. And yet I know at the core of my being that I am a place where the good of God shows up in the world. And so my affirmation, my prayer kind of altered itself a little bit this week and became this: I am a place where the good of God shows up in the world unimpeded by anyone or anything. Freedom is my design and my birthright. I'll read that again. I am a place where the good of God shows up in the world freely, unimpeded by anyone or anything. Freedom is my design and my birthright. This is where it begins for me. That's what informs the doing. Honestly, sometimes the doing is less clear than the being, but I do know that my being is always informing. So it is doing something. My being is doing. Do you follow me? And so then sometimes that being, that knowing, is doing enough. I remind myself of that because I can be hard on myself, thinking I should be doing more. I've heard from a fair number of folks. What am I supposed to do? I feel like I should be doing more. No? This is what it looks like. We're doing our work. I remind myself that I'm doing with every thought, every word, every feeling, all of that, every bit as important as anything else I can do. I'm doing my work in consciousness, and that work is interconnected with every mind and heart on the planet. Who and what I am is enough, perfect, and evolving. So this morning, I claim our freedom from anything or anyone that has held us in bondage in any way. I claim a new headline. I am free to be all that I'm here to be. I am free to be all that I am here to be. You don't have to figure out the how, but just have to set the intention. That's what I choose for today and the days ahead. And I know that as I do my work, as we, as a community, do our work, our presence automatically liberates others. Love is the victor in every case. Blessed be. Let us pray. The sound of life meets and accompanies us. Life itself, breathing this breath, thinking these thoughts, feeling these feelings, dreaming these dreams, seeking only to live and to love and to express itself through and as me, through and as each person here this morning. Unencumbered by anything that's come before. Principle is not bound by precedent. And so today I speak to and claim our collective and individual freedom to be all that we're here to be fabulous, to be joyous, to be radiant, to be kind and loving, to be forgiving, to be a place where the good of God shows up in the world unimpeded. And it's from that place that I speak a word for our nonprofit partner for the month, which is My Stuffed Bags, providing comfort items to children in challenging situations. I speak a word for our planet and our increasingly mindful stewardship of her. I speak a word for our children, blessing them, giving thanks for them, the creativity, the unencumbered nature with which they live their lives. I speak a word for those experiencing challenge of any sort. Challenge from our pandemic, challenge from racism, challenge of any sort. We lift the people and the circumstances and the minds and hearts higher. We lift them above the fray and know the truth that every single person is a perfect place where the good of God shows up in the world. I also claim and affirm that we are in the midst of an exceptionally amazing, fabulous, wonderful time of transformation and transmutation. That love is indeed the victor in this case. That we are in the midst of creating a world that truly works for everyone. We do our own work, and collectively the work is done. I'm so grateful for knowing that we are the right people in the right place. Today is a very good day. God is good all the time. I give thanks for it all. Resting in that gratitude. I know that gratitude too is a doing thing. It's causative. And I find more and more to be grateful for. And I'm filled to overflowing with gratitude today. And so for all of that and more, I give thanks. I rest in that gratitude. I release this, my word, into the law of mind that says yes and makes it so. And I let it be. And so it is. Amen. Blessed be, blessed be. I like this sitting outside business. I like the birds and the sunshine and the wind on my skin. Helps me feel connected with the planet.